today. I mean, obviously, pitching is quite a broad thing, right? So pitching in sales, in business, whether you're a salesperson, whether you're a business owner, it can be everything from I've got 20 seconds to capture someone's attention through to I'm standing in front of a table full of decision makers, putting my best foot forward. So what are we expected to learn today, Steve?
Well, yeah, I mean, I completely agree. I think there's an awful danger for us to start saying, a pitch is just a formal presentation, or it is that the cliche of the elevator pitch, and it is when you suddenly find yourself in front of this very important person. And yet we're all pitching about our businesses all the time. Every time you meet somebody new and they just say, what do? You go into a pitch, and even if you're down the pub with mates, maybe mate introduces you to somebody new down the pub, and that person says, oh, what do you do? You actually you're going into a pitch, and you wouldn't go into a formal, here is my prepared script sort of thing when you're down the pub. And actually, I really want to tell people, it's about finding a naturalistic way to do it, to say it and things. So, so it is. I think it is important that we pitch in a way that is natural, easy, that actually connects with people, and it's not about being scripted. And I know some people like to have a sales script, but actually, I'm a big believer that it's about being able to talk apparently off the cuff, and you're gonna have thought it through, and you're gonna have some things prepared. But actually, it's about being able to speak naturally. My adage is always know what you want to say, but don't know your words, i.e., don't have a script. Because I think when you get stuck in a script, A, it sounds terrible, and B, it's you put people off, actually. I think there's a real danger that you can put people off very quickly. So also, if you forget that script halfway through, it's very difficult to get yourself back into it. I'm going to say I promised Steve Rackley a visit, and I know Ben used to visit. I can hear there's somebody coming up the stairs. Just for those of you who I don't know, if you follow me on LinkedIn, you'll know that I've just had a new intern join the company. Four-legged intern, it has to be said. And at the moment, all she's capable of is shredding newspaper. But she has just, God, my husband John's just brought her up, so you can say hello, because I'm afraid we're showing this one off quite a lot. This is Ari. So
welcome. The famous for 5 minutes.
So this is Ari. Ari is there we go, a bit sleepy. Nice. She is a 9-week-old Gordon setter. So she is going to grow to be significantly bigger than this. She's going to be a big dog, so red setter size. This is the new intern, and get your voice heard.
Amazing.
Not terribly. Sorry.
Good luck with that, Steve.
No, not that she's bored, but anyway, there you go. There, I just thought you'd want to meet her.
Lovely to meet the family. It's a family thing. It's a family thing. Amazing.
So amazing. I suspect going back to bed now. Anyway, sorry, that was an interruption, but I just thought people might like to meet her.
No, that was brilliant. Thank you. I mean, on just diving straight back in the pitch side. So when you're talking about scripting, I think being personal is one of the main reasons people buy from people. But it's a personalized approach. It's something that you want to hear from me. I want to share. When you have a script, the person on the receiving end of that is typically like, I'm one of many. I'm not feeling particularly valued. This is not a great exercise, and we all know when scripts are there. I mean, I when doing something new would use bullet points. Yeah. So I know I anchor myself back to the things that I have to say rather than give me every word.
Well, exactly. Know what you want to say, but don't know your words.
Yeah,
and that's the thing. I think you've got to know it. You've got to know what you want to get across. But if you find yourself repeating the same words time and time again, I think there's a problem. You need to pull back. So one of the things I want to do today is just look at some of the basics, in some ways, of putting a pitch together. And for those of you watching who are perhaps new to sales, then hopefully this will just give you some ideas on how to start formulating a pitch. But also, even those of you who've been in sales for a while and maybe delivering pitches, I'd invite you to critically examine what you are currently doing. Because I think the other problem is we quite often get into patterns and we start repeating ourselves, and we don't ever really stop and think, does my pitch need to mature? Does it need to move on? Do I need to actually change this or tweak it? Because it should never be the same twice. I think that's the absolute truth, because every single person you're going to deliver it to is going to be different. So it's got to be personalized. It's got to be relevant to that person. You've got to be talking their language, not your language. I want to explore some of those things today, because I think a lot of people have never really stopped and thought, how am I putting across what I need to put across? A lot of people just start talking, and that's fine. You know, it's conversational, what have you. But I think there are ways we can just start to hone what we're going to say. So I want to talk. We're going to think a little bit about how you describe what you do, how you differentiate it, all those sorts of things. And we've got some exercises. We're going to put people into breakout rooms. We're going to get everybody to answer a couple of very simple questions, which will hopefully get you thinking. So yeah, I wanted to give people a chance to really come out of this with something they can use and something they can adapt, whether they are somebody who's just new to having to put together a pitch or somebody who's been doing it for years.
So what's up first then, Steve? What are we focusing on first?
I want to just start with a really basic question. I mean, so often anybody going to a networking event or, as I say, meeting somebody for the first time down the pub, the inevitable question is, what do you do? Which sounds like a really innocuous question, and yet it is the heart of a pitch. It's the heart of telling somebody what we do and ultimately making a sale. The problem is, because it's an innocuous little question, we have a tendency to give an innocuous little answer. And a lot of people have never really thought about how they answer that most basic questions. What do you do? So what we're going to do is we're going to go to breakout rooms. You should find yourself in a room with about 5 or 6 people. And we're going to ask you just to go around the room. You'll have about 5 minutes. So you've got up to about maybe about a minute each. And to just answer that question, what do you do? There's no trick here. There's nothing here that that is difficult or whatever. And there's no right or wrong way of doing this. But let's just start with that basic question. What do you do? Then we're going to come back and unpack it a little bit, and think about actually how we can improve the way we answer that question.
Well, I think it's safe to say there that certainly in our group, time, right?
Right. Okay.
So one of the common themes through this thread, I would imagine, because it's there's lots of businesses with complex offerings and services. So that was now.
It's interesting, isn't it? And I think an awful lot of us feel that we have to get every single element of what we possibly do into the introduction or into our pitch. And so often the art is in the edits. The art is in understanding what you can leave out and yet still communicate the basis of what you do. And ultimately, what you're trying to do with most pitches actually is to engender questions. You want people to then say, "Oh, can you tell me more about that?" and things. And that we'll explore that in a few minutes. I mean, I'm just interested to know what sort of answers people got when this question, what do you do? Say, innocuous little question. How did people answer it? Does anybody want to come across and just to give us a thought on how they answered it? How do they go about it? Either drop it into the chat box or by all means just unmute yourself and come across, whichever's easiest for you.
Yeah, I'm happy to say something. I've kind of noticed in our group, I don't think we really sort of pitched what we did in any way. We just kind of explained what we did as a job.
Right.
So ours was kind of a little bit shorter reaching, I guess. Just what we do, and that was kind of it. Yeah, all very relaxed though.
Yeah, I mean, the problem is half of us tend to end up reciting the first paragraph of our LinkedIn profile. We sort of just tend to say, "This is what I do on a daily basis."
I did do that.
You are sorry?
I did do that, pretty much. Just used to it now.
Yeah, and that is the problem. We just go into talking about ourselves and just listing almost like the job description that we have for our role, sort of thing, and actually that's not really pertinent to the person we're talking to. And I think there is a real problem when we ask that question, what do you do? We hear the word you, and that refers to us, and all we do is we talk about ourselves. And best one in the world, if we're stood in the pub and you're telling me what you do, I don't really care. I don't really care about you. I care about me. And we're all driven by self-interest at the end of the day. So what I really want to hear is not what you do, but what you could do for me. And I think this is a really important difference. So if you find yourself either reciting, as I say, the first paragraph of your LinkedIn profile, or just talking about yourself, there's a problem. And it's very easy to think, I'm talking about the customer or talking about the person I'm chatting to, but actually you're still talking about yourself. Anybody who's been on a 90s film binge recently, there's a great film called Beaches. And there's a character played by Bette Midler, and she has this wonderful line where she goes, "Anyway, that's enough talking about me. Let's talk about you. What do you think about me?" And I think that is quite true. I think a lot of us do have this opportunity where we want to talk about ourselves. We like talking about ourselves. As I say, we're driven by self-interest. But when somebody asks you, what do you do? What you need to do is turn that question round in your own head and answer it as if you have just been asked, what could you do for me? So we're going to go back into breakout rooms. Hopefully you'll find yourself in the same set of people, but it doesn't matter if you don't. But the question now, you have to go around the group and ask and answer, each of you, make sure everybody has time to do it, is what could you do for me? And then when we come back, I want to hear from some of you how your answers differed. Okay, so we'll go into breakout rooms, answer the question, what could you do for me? And we'll see you in 5 or 6 minutes. Okay, well, I'm interested to know how your answers differed. Did your answers differ? That's the key one. So Ben, what happened in your room with people?
Interesting discussion. So actually, so I was in a room with Tristan and Harry, and what was quite incredible with Harry, and I hope he doesn't mind me saying, is it went from being lots of descriptive words down to bang, about 2 sentences, really short, and did make me want to say, but how do you do that? Why do you do that? So that was a really good exercise. And Tristan raised a very good point around this pitch. If you're selling to your ideal customer, if you're proactively going after a specific person, you can master that and perfect it. But actually, if you're in a room of unknowns at a networking event, as an example, that pitch or that description of what you do would potentially differ every time because it isn't exactly meeting their need. And how would you sort of address that, Steve? What would you say if you are advising or introducing yourself?
Yeah, you do need a slightly more generic version of your pitch if you're not sure who you're talking to. And I think there is going to be a version for face-to-face, for one-to-one, particularly if it's somebody you know and maybe you already know they're a prospect, or if you are talking to a room full of people. But even then, you can talk about them and their businesses and their challenges, and you can turn it around. So rather than just talking about yourself, it's talking about them as individuals, but also as businesses. Yeah. So I think, it really, what the point of this exercise is to start to get people out of the habit of talking about themselves and into the habit about talking about the person they are talking to. So I'm interested, does anybody else have any feedback on how their answers differed on that one? Anybody else want to come across and tell us?
We can pick on people, Steve.
Oh, we can, can't we? That's always fun.
We won't. But
I'm happy to quickly say something, I guess.
I'm
not really quoting me actually, but Lewis said something quite interesting, which was that he started by introducing himself as, sorry, I hope you don't mind me saying, Lewis, he started by introducing himself as like the owner of the business, and then kind of realised that actually maybe the audience doesn't really kind of matter if he's the owner or not. It's actually a lot more about what his business does. So we had a few iterations on the electric camper van business that he started. That was quite interesting, explaining, and Kieran had a couple of really good points as well, but to do with, just kind of almost telling a little story. So, if you want to get close to nature and you haven't decided where you want to go, then I would help those sort of adventurers out there to kind of tick every box. I don't know, that's completely different to what we talked about, but a lot more about the benefit.
Yeah, and also because actually just starting this answer with, if you want to do this, straight away, if you're talking to me, you're talking about me. So I've then got an opportunity to respond and we start a conversation. Whereas if you just say, I rent out camper vans and you can go there, then actually there's no invitation to response. Whereas if you start to talk about me and actually opening the question, if you want to do this, or, do you struggle with that? Or you can even start with, to explain what I do, let me just ask you a question. Do you do such and such? And you can just turn it straight around into a question. But the trick here is not to just talk about yourself. And it's interesting, in the first round, people saying they ran out of time, because when we talk about ourselves, we can talk an awful lot. We all know what we do. We all know our businesses. We all know what we're meant to be talking about. When you start talking about them, because ultimately this person, you don't know them that well, chances are. So it immediately invites this to become a conversation, takes you out of script pitch mode and into conversation, chat, two-way conversation mode. So I think it's a useful approach. It is slightly tricky, Ben, as you say, if you're talking to a large room of people you don't necessarily know, but you need to start talking almost in rhetorical questions. do you struggle with such and such? Is this something that you recognize? And start talking in questions. They can sit there and go, oh, actually, I do. I recognize myself in that conundrum or in that challenge, or that is a struggle I face. And then, they've immediately got self-interest. It's almost go back to, what was it, WIIFM, what's in it for me? People are going to make a decision very quickly when you start pitching to them. And as I say, this is whether it's a formal pitch or just a conversational pitch, they're going to make a decision very quickly whether this is them or not.
Yeah.
So it's up to you to appeal to that self-interest really fast. And if you're just talking about yourself, you ain't appealing to that person's self-interest.
The interesting thing about this as well is we've been doing this as an exercise in a safe environment where people, aren't actually looking to sell right now. But even though you and I have set the exercise, Steve, even going through that process, I felt a very different emotional response when somebody was talking about me, even though I know this is a role play environment, right? So yeah. It doesn't matter if you know this is happening to you or not. If the person on the other side of the conversation is aware what you're doing, they will still have a emotional reaction to the way you are talking to them. So that getting that buy-in is really crucial.
Yeah, because we'd rather talk about ourselves than listen to somebody else talk about themselves. So I'd rather you talked about me and my business than just talk about yourself and your business.
Yeah.
Because immediately I'm going to buy in because actually I'm driven by self-interest, and that doesn't make me selfish. That's just human nature. So yeah, I think it is important that we get out of that me mode and go into you mode, and just to talk about that person. So if somebody says to you, "What do you do?" or words to that effect, just turn the question around in your own mind and answer it as if they had said, "What could you do for me?" I think it gives you a much stronger opening into your pitch.
Definitely. So, the analogy I used in our room, and just to finish out this section, really is, buying a car, right? And I certainly have never done this, but maybe the mechanics in the room do. But you don't go and either buy a car to find out how a battery works or how a piston works. I care about looks, safety, speed, insurance. These are the things I care about, not the mechanics under the bonnet.
No, absolutely.
It's less about the how and more about the what.
Yeah. So actually, let's explore some of that, because I think that I think you're absolutely right. And let's just dive into that a bit further. And I'm going to ask is there somebody, a volunteer, who's up for a short, sharp, fun challenge? It's not going to be tricky. But just somebody who's up for taking part in a quick exercise, and I'm going to say who's not Steve or Ben, but I'm thinking down. Harry, would you be up for taking part in a short exercise with me? Oh, Simon, there we go.
Simon's been volunteered.
Well done, that man. So Simon, this is just a 60-second challenge, and you are talking to a room full of cave men and women, cave people. Okay. So the rest of us, our language skills don't go much beyond ugh. Okay. But your job in 60 seconds is to persuade us cave people that we should stop trying to invent the wheel, and instead we should be concentrating on inventing the microwave oven. Okay. So you've got to persuade us to stop trying to invent the wheel and instead to concentrate our limited tools and language capabilities on inventing the microwave oven. Does that make sense? Well, that's sense that exercise is never going to make.
As much as possible, yes.
Yeah, great. Okay. So I'm going to put 60 seconds on the clock on my phone here. And you've got 60 seconds to persuade the assembled crowd of cave people to invent the microwave oven. And your time starts now.
Friends, neighbours, I know that you want to get from A to B and not have to carry all those rocks. But imagine if you had a lot more time every day where you didn't have to sit around watching food cook on a fire. You could bring your food, you could throw it in an oven, magical oven. Your food is cooked within minutes instead of hours when we cook for the whole village. So I know you think that you'll save a lot of time getting from A to B with this wheel, but let's think about saving minutes every day or hours every day, and then we can go and do that later.
Brilliant. Okay, that was 56 seconds, so well done anyway. Great, good stuff. Nice one.
Well done. Well done.
Thank you for taking part. Okay. Comments. I'm going to ask other people now for comments on how Simon went about that. What did he do to try to persuade us to invent the microwave oven? Anybody got any thoughts on that? Go on then, Ben.
One of the most powerful words Simon said was imagine. Imagine, and I'm already there thinking about what the future might be. I love that. I absolutely love that. And you're already thinking about an alternate future. And when you're thinking about an alternate future, you're buying into it, whether it's positive or you're fearing it, whether it's negative. So using a word like that is one of the best bits of toolkit lexicon. I would suggest getting into your sales vocab, really.
Yeah, absolutely. Nice one. Yes, imagine's always a good word because it made you start to do it. You follow that instruction. What else did Simon do? Any other comments? No? Okay.
So I thought Simon did a great job, much braver than myself if I was trying to do that. But what kind of really stuck out to me is that kind of he immediately went into what the benefits of that future situation would be. So kind of just adding on to Ben's point, I guess really that he kind of painted the picture for kind of those benefits it would provide rather than just the kind of the features of what needed to be built, if that made sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Because what he didn't do was say to us, you need to build a metal box and it needs to have a glass door and a turntable inside. It's got to have some knobs and there's the small matter of electricity, but we'll let that one go. So he didn't tell us about the features at all. It wasn't the pistons or the engine or whatever, as you said, Ben, with the cars. Actually, he went straight into the benefits and it was all about the speed. It was all about the time you're going to save. I mean, we could have got into things like the safety, that actually it's going to be safer to put food in a microwave than on a fire. That caveman needs that instant pizza. So, yeah, I think it was classic. He went straight into why you should do this rather than these are the features. This is what you need. Here's a knob and you have to go ping after 60 seconds. So well done, Simon. Thank you for taking part. And hopefully everybody's now persuaded to abandon the wheel and go for the microwave oven instead. But it is all about, and hopefully this is, I'm teaching Granny to suck eggs on this one. It is all about going for the benefits of what you do, not the features. Now, again, when you're talking about yourself, you're going to be talking about the features. You're going to be talking about, this is what I do. These are the services I provide. That means nothing to me, ultimately, because the services you provide, fine, that's something I can purchase, but actually, what are the benefits you bring? And it's something that I think a lot of people still sometimes struggle to really extrapolate and to start to express. But you need to be able to talk about the benefits you bring to me as an individual, but also to my organization. And this, again, if you're talking to a large group, you want to focus on the benefits of the organization. But if you can sell somebody, particularly if you're selling a business service, and I think a number of people on the call are likely to be selling business services, how can you make my life easier appeals to my self-interest as an individual? How can you help my bottom line appeals to me and my organization and me, the entrepreneur, even if I those working for larger organizations. So you've got two sets of benefits you can start to explore. How can you make my life easier? So you're going to eat faster, you're going to eat hot food, you don't have to wait for hours while it cooks on the fire. But also, how can you benefit the village, which I thought was lovely. This idea of the cavemen already living in villages. That actually, you're going that people will get fed faster, you'll all get to eat proper food, all those sorts of things. So start to look for those benefits rather than just the features. I say this is such bog standard stuff in a way, and yet so many people just don't do it. They don't really go straight to the benefits. They insist on telling us about the features, because the features what you do every day. The features are actually the bit that is the nitty-gritty that you churn out. But ultimately, for me, it's about the benefits you provide So I'm just wondering about whether we should, is it worth going back into a breakout room, do you think, Ben, just to talk about, see if we can express the benefits of what they do?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, one thing that I will sort of give everybody a bit of a framework to do is because I think it was our session a couple of months ago, we spoke about understanding customers' needs to really get the benefits in. And I think, all of you have got different businesses, all of you have got different customer bases. So to understand the problems that you're fixing will make it much easier to demonstrate the benefits. So there are a number of recruitment consultants on this call, I know, and typically the problem that their clients face is I've got a new role and an empty seat, and that empty seat is costing me money. Okay, it's just to say we're recruiting for a salesperson. Okay, so the problem is I'm losing money because I don't have a person in that seat that's been budgeted for. So when recruitment consultants are selling recruitment, you're not saying I'll find you the best candidate and this is how I do it. You're saying we will ensure that you're no longer losing revenue by having a high performing individual sat in the seat. Not how we got there, but what the outcome is. So before we do this, Stephen, I absolutely think we should just have a bit of a breakout and we can go into different groups and discuss what that looks like for each individual. But think about the problems that you're solving first. You know what you already do, feature, but how does the benefit fix that problem? What does it mean to the customer at the end of that conversation? Hope that helps as a framework to work it out.
Yeah, absolutely. And this sort of extends that answer to what could you do for me? Because this absolutely is your opportunity to express to me the benefits you can bring to me as an individual and as an organization. So yeah, let's go back into breakout rooms. Again, you'll have about 5 minutes, so about a minute each. Just see if you can sum up the benefits of what you do. What are the benefits you provide to me as a potential customer? I'd be interested to hear what you come back with.
Harry just asked me a great question about do we focus on the positives only in this pitch scenario, or can you allude to negatives? And I started on a preamble and then got cut ruthlessly short. What are your views on that, Steve? What are your?
I think at this point, yes, you should focus. I think you can highlight the challenges. But on the whole, I would focus on the positive. I would focus on the benefits you bring and the advantages, if you like, rather than sowing seeds of doubt. I think as soon as you introduce what could be perceived as negatives, then you're sowing the seeds of doubt in somebody's mind. But I think you can certainly, you can structure your pitch around challenge. And this is a challenge a lot of us face. And I would make it a communal challenge rather than an individual challenge. Do you have this problem? It's a challenge, not a problem. That's to my mind. But what about you? I mean, you're the.
Well, I think each to their own. I don't think there is any right or wrong way. I basically said if you are bringing negatives to the table, risks, pitfalls. We call it what it is. It's a less favourable outcome. That should be more of an education to say, Mr. and Mrs. Client, this is how you mitigate against this. These are the things that might happen. Are you seeing this? It's more around you understanding the situation or how aware they are of a potential pitfall. But from a pitch perspective, it's rosy, it's prairie, it's utopia, right? And then you bring them away from the negative and then look at what could be.
Okay, no, I think that works. I think that does work. So I think just in terms of the answers people came up with in the rooms, hopefully you were able to express the benefits you bring. And ideally, I would suggest you should be able to bring it down to maybe 2 or 3 key words or 2 or 3 very short phrases that express the benefits you bring. This isn't about going into long, convoluted explanations of all the sort of things and results and all this sort of stuff. These are just certain words that are the benefits you bring. And I'll give you an example now. As Ben mentioned, I'm a public speaking coach. I also do a lot of event comparing. But as a public speaking coach, I know that the benefit I bring is confidence. People don't come to me necessarily for, they might say, oh, I need scripting help and things, but actually it's about confidence. It's confidence to be able to script using their own words. It's confidence to be able to try something different. It's confidence to be able to put themselves out there as a speaker. It's confidence to stand on a stage in front of a room and present or pitch or whatever it is they're doing. So I know that the benefit I bring is confidence. So when I'm describing to somebody what I do, the first thing I'll normally say is, I deal in confidence. I'm a confidence merchant, you know, or how confident are you as a public speaker? How confident are you that you could stand up and pitch in front of an audience tomorrow morning? Because confidence, I know, is the benefit I bring, and it's the thing that a lot of people, they may not have thought about it in that term, but that's actually what they're looking for. They're looking for support to become a more confident presenter or pitcher or whatever it is. So that's a really useful one to me. The other thing I would say, if you are struggling to articulate the benefits you bring, go and ask your clients. It can be a really interesting exercise to go to clients, and it can just be part of a casual conversation, you know, one of those end of meetings as everybody's packing up thing. Just have, look, I'm doing a bit of research. Out of interest, how would you describe the benefit I or we bring to you? And just listen, and listen very carefully to the language they use, because the language your clients use to describe the benefits you bring is the language you should then be using to potential clients, because chances are those sorts of words and phrases will resonate. And again, I'm giving an example. I actually did a little piece of research with clients, and I used a third party, went to my clients and sort of interviewed them about what I do. The phrase that kept coming back was critical friend. And they've said, you are a critical friend to our business. You know, we know you're going to come in and critique the hell out of us, and you're going to tell us the truth, and you're going to tell us the stuff I don't necessarily want to hear, but we know you're doing it with our own best interests at heart. And this phrase, critical friend, kept coming back. So it's now on my business card. It says speaker, coach, critical friend. And it's interesting, if I give my business card to somebody, although quite frankly, how many people are giving out business cards these days? I mean, it's just like, doesn't happen anymore. That's the bit that people will always they'll look at it and they go, oh, critical friend, what's that about? Okay, and then I'm into, and I can then to deliver my pitch about what it's like, why I'm a critical friend, and a critical friend to you and to your organization. And that absolutely came from listening to my clients. So if you're struggling to talk about the benefits you provide, ask your clients and say, listen to the language. And it's not just the sentiment, it's the words they use. You know, copy them down. You know, it can be a really useful exercise to get a third party, to get somebody else to actually to talk to your clients on your behalf. It's a slightly bigger piece of research. You'll probably get slightly more honest answers actually if it's a third party who does it for you. But yeah, I think that's the useful approach.
I'd agree. I think some of the stuff that we were discussing in our group as well is again coming back to being succinct. And so, you know, look at these positive words, and you don't have to think so big in order to ensure that our customer is understood. Sometimes it's like, you know, we create space, we provide security, we enable convenience, and that will mean something to somebody on the other end of that conversation, even though it's not an in-depth something too specific. It can.
True, although I think there's also a danger of going into generic language if you're not careful. And I know you want to be broad to be inclusive, but there's also where you can end up using language that's not specific enough, and actually people it becomes mush, it becomes cliche, dare I say it.
Well, on that then, why don't we use this as a good point of working out what not to say? You know, like, yeah. Because okay. I mean, I've clearly I've dropped a clanger.
No. Let's try it. Okay, I'm going to ask the group. Let's use the chat box. Just drop in the chat box any words that you think we should avoid when we are pitching or talking about business. What are the words? What are the cliches? What are the no-nos? What are the words and phrases that actually have a tendency to turn people off? I'm going to just use the chat box. Any words? Cheap. yes. I'm cheap. I'm reassuringly expensive, I'll tell you that much. Might. So qualifiers, but possibly, any of those sort of, those things that are just prevaricating and aren't making a decision. Any other words that people think of that we should maybe avoid in
award-winning, love that.
Yeah, an award-winning agency. What did you win? Yeah, absolutely. Dynamic, game-changing, disruptive. Yeah, cliche.
Innovative, forward-thinking.
Oh God, yes. Innovative. We're a really innovative, company. We're a really people-focused organization. Bugger off. No, you're not. Buzzwords. You're absolutely right. Synergies, driving, all those sorts of things. A couple more I'm going to throw in, which I know some people get quite upset about. Creative. creative is just a cliche, or we take a really creative approach. Show me a company that doesn't take a creative approach. The other one, passionate. We're passionate about this. Yeah, if it looks copied and pasted from another site, don't say it. Yes, I'd absolutely agree. Passionate, creative. If you have to tell me, if you have to point out how passionate you are, then you're clearly not. If you have to tell me how creative you are, you're clearly not. Because I should be able to tell that you are creative or passionate from the moment you walk into a room, or the moment we start on a Zoom call. The way you dress, the background, the way you act, the words you use, they are what communicate your creativity, your passion, all those sorts of things. If you have to tell me, clearly you are not those things. And yet I see so many businesses using the words creative and passion on their website, and they are cliches. It's like saying, oh, leading. We're a leading agency. We're a leading recruitment company. Leading means nothing. It's like the word nice. It's neutral. It just doesn't actually mean anything. We care. Oh yeah, that's nasty. I'd hope so. Yeah. But I think you're absolutely right. If it looks copied and pasted from another site, don't say it. If other people are using these words, find different words. The thesaurus function in Microsoft Word is a very useful tool at that point. Trusted. Yeah, again, I think it's a cliche. So surely all of this goes without saying. Now, I'm not sure if you're saying that about what I'm saying, or if that's a phrase you think we should avoid, but probably both are true. So yeah, there's all these words that we should avoid. There's just all this stuff that is too overused. You end up sounding like you're on The Apprentice, because that's the word, that's the jargon and the gobbledygook that they spout, thinking that that's what makes them sound professional. So there's just all these cliches, and actually I think that leads us in quite nicely to the final topic I just want to touch on, which is differentiation, because I think it's the other big problem a lot of people have when they're putting together a pitch is, how do you differentiate yourself? Now, I used to run a PR agency. I spent about 11 or 12 years running a PR agency, and I would be pitching against other PR agencies, and ultimately every PR agency does pretty much the same thing. Now, I might have a sector specialism, but ultimately I know the same set of journalists, and I can reach the same set of influencers, and I can post the same sort of content on social media, and I can reach the same set of radio or newspaper outlets. So my services don't differentiate me, because every PR agency does the same. And I'm going to suggest it's probably true of recruitment agencies, and certainly agencies of whatever ilk, SEO, digital, marketing, comms, whatever you are. We all do pretty much the same thing. You do pretty much the same thing as your competitors, because so you're not differentiating yourself. A lot of differentiation isn't about what you do, it's about how you do it. It's about the experience of working with you. And in a pitch, that I think is what you should be concentrating on, is the experience of working with you. What is it that makes you different? And again, this is a useful question to go and ask your clients. Why did you choose us? What was it that made us different? How would you describe the experience of working with us? And again, listen to that language they come back with, because that then is the language to start employing in your pitch, because it will resonate with potential clients. So it's an important one. The other one, exercise I would suggest you do, in fact, I'd suggest everybody does this once we finish this call, is go to the homepage of your website, select all the text, copy it, paste it into a Word document, and then use find and replace to strip out every mention of your company or the word we, and replace it with the name of your closest competitor. And then read the text. And you'll probably find that you have just described your closest competitor in perfect and glowing terms. And actually, it could be the copy from the homepage of their website. And it's because you haven't differentiated yourself. You're using a very standard, generic set of language that your competitors are using as well. So again, you've got to find language that will differentiate you, that will set you apart, that will, and this is why it's so important to avoid all those cliches we've just talked about, because that's the language everybody uses. So find other ways of doing it. Some of you may remember actually at a Silicon Brighton event, I suppose it must be 3 years ago now, we played business bullshit bingo, where we actually gave out bingo cards, and we actually played a game of it, because we want to, we need to identify and be aware of this language, these cliches, because they just make it. If you're using generic language, you sound like everybody else. You are not differentiating. the other one, those of you who work with me will know I have a real bugbear about stock imagery. If you're using stock imagery on websites and things, you're going to look generic. Stock images are designed to look generic. So why on earth would you want to use images that other people might be using that just make you look like everybody else? Get your own photography done. Find a photographer and get creative with them, and actually have your own stock images, because again, it's how you differentiate yourself. So think about brand values. What would your brand values say that will differentiate you from your competitors? One of my brand values is fun, and it's because I want people to find it fun to work with me. And I've had people come out of my coaching and things going, I didn't expect you to enjoy it, and it's like, well, God, did you really come in expecting to hate it? So I want people to enjoy working with me. I want people to have fun, because that's important to me, because if they're having fun, I'm having fun, and if I'm not having fun, I'm out. So just think about what are your brand values and how do they differentiate. If your brand values again could be applied to your nearest competitor, that doesn't say a lot about your business and your brand values. So think about what is that experience. Ask your clients, and that really is going to be the heart of differentiation. I can just see, Kieran just said, our biggest competitor recently had a stock image on their site that still had the watermark. Ouch! So they're using it illegally. Well, hey, so yeah. And I mean, I hope it goes without saying, coining a cliche, if you are looking for stock imagery, don't just go to Google image search. Make sure you have the license for it. Getty Images and the like are spidering the web all the time looking for unlicensed use of their images, and you will just, the first thing you'll know is you'll get an invoice for about £2,500. So make sure you have licenses for every image and piece of video that you use, and that's why ultimately I think it's better off getting your own made. It will help differentiate you, but actually just also legally it's just a much better position to be in.
That's super powerful. I mean, I'm thinking there immediately that I don't want anyone to go to my website now, which is great. So I've now got to go and do a massive overhaul myself. Thanks
and your website's on your Zoom names, Ben, so we can all see what it is.
Yeah. Don't go there just yet. These are things that are really useful. And I've been in this world for a long time, and the obvious thing, copy and paste everything that you're doing and replace it with your competitor name. It's like such an easy task to do, but very, very powerful, and probably will make you feel pretty bad about yourself, I would imagine. But it's the rocket out the backside. We need to make sure we're having those differentiators. And
I mean, none of this is rocket science. This is all hopefully pretty obvious stuff, but we just get out of the habit of doing it. And I think that's why I said at the beginning that even those of you who've been pitching for a long time, I just wanted to invite you to think critically about the words you use, the phrases, the things you reach for all the time, to re-examine them. This is the building blocks at the basis of a good pitch. Now we could then get into all sorts of stuff around, semantics and language and tone of voice and all this of stuff. But actually, you've got to get the basics right. And a lot of people either just get lazy and don't re-examine this regularly, and you should re-examine it regularly, or they've never even thought about it and they just go for whatever comes to mind.
Yeah, no, for sure. And this is something, like you say, it evolves all the time. Keep tabs on it, and it does change. And one thing I quite like is if you're saying your truth and you know exactly where it needs to be, and it doesn't land with somebody on the other side, well, you weren't meant to be working with them in the first place, so it doesn't really matter, right? So it gives them an opportunity to discount themselves out of your service or product offering too. So we do. I mean, I read a lot about what people do on LinkedIn, and it's like if you're not either alienating someone or someone doesn't disagree with you, you're not trying hard enough. So it's stand for something, be known for something, and I think benefit as well.
Anybody who's follows me on LinkedIn will have seen the picture I posted of Ari the dog as my new intern day before yesterday, I think, and it's had 7,500 impressions, and it's had far more interaction than any other LinkedIn post I put up for the last few months. And then I know I've had some people message me going, oh, you're making it look like Facebook, you shouldn't be doing this. And it's like, actually it works. I've had a lot of people look at my profile. I've had a number of people messaging me going, oh, thanks for posting this, I've been meaning to get in touch and all that sort of stuff. So do what you do. I think you're absolutely right, Ben. Speak your truth. And because also, as I say, me, fun and engagement is part of it. So if it takes a picture of the dog, I will prostitute that dog till the cows come home. That's a really
disclaimer.
Weird
Disclaimer.
Phrase I meant.
No animals were harmed in the making of this video.
Yeah,
Brilliant.
She, in fact, she will have her own Instagram account fairly shortly, and we've already had the first contact from a brand saying they'd be interested in doing a brand interaction with her, and it's like, okay, great, why not? So
exploit the animals.
Sorry, I probably just.
Well, I mean, this is a tangent. This is a tangent I never saw South Coast Sellers Club going down, but you know, there's opportunity everywhere, ladies and gentlemen. So
yeah,
puppy exploitation is where it's at, mate. It's been an absolute pleasure having you here. I've learned a hell of a lot, and I'm desperately worried about my website, but you know, that's for another day.